أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم
Surah 77, Al-Mursalat. Title: The expression Al-Mursalat features in the opening verse of this surah and provides its title. Period of revelation. It emerges from the surah's contents that it must have been revealed in the early Meccan phase. On reading this surah together with the two preceding it, surahs Al-Qiyamah and Ad-Dahr, and the two following it, surahs
An-Naba'a
and
An-Nazi'at,
one ascertains that all five were sent down in the same period, for these spell out the same truths in a variety of ways for the admonition of the Meccans. Subject matter and themes. The surah affirms the truth of the last day and the day of judgment and warns the unbelievers against the consequences of rejecting the truth. Verses 1 to 7 adduce the arrangement of winds as a sign that bears out the veracity of the Prophet's tidings about the last day. It is inevitable, for God, the absolutely powerful, who has put in place the amazing arrangement for the blowing of the winds, can easily bring about the last day. The wisdom underlying the above system underscores the need for the hereafter, for there is a purpose behind every act of God. Without the afterlife, the present order loses its meaning and purpose. The Meccans repeatedly challenged the Prophet, peace be upon him, to bring upon them the last day against which he had warned them about. Verses 8 to 15, without mentioning this demand of theirs, say that the last day is not something trivial to be presented on demand. The day of judgment is for all humanity, and God has already fixed its date. When the last day comes, it will strike everyone so terribly that the unbelievers who are demanding that it come sooner will be utterly panic-stricken. The testimony of their messengers will then decide their fate, although they unabashedly reject their call for now. Only at that point would they realize how they had incurred their own self-destruction. Verses 16 to 28 present one argument after another for the need of the last day and the hereafter. Man's history, his creation, and the constitution of the planet Earth that he inhabits all testify to the possibility of and the divine rationale for the hereafter. It is evident from the annals of history that all those nations who disbelieved in the hereafter faced decline and destruction. If a nation rejects this doctrine, it invites self-destruction. The universe is governed not only by physical laws, but by moral laws too, which are at work. As a result, everyone is recompensed. In this present life, their recompense cannot be dispensed in full. The moral laws of the universe therefore demand a point of time when everyone shall be recompensed in full for all their good and evil deeds. It will compensate for the partial recompense in this world. Life after death is essential for this. Likewise, if one reflects on man's birth, he cannot dare to deny that God, who let him grow from an insignificant sperm drop into an adult human being, cannot bring him back to life. After death, the components of one's body do not vanish from the earth. Rather, they survive. Man is nourished from all that the earth produces, and after death he returns to the same earth. God, who had created man from clay in the first place, is quite capable of retrieving him from the earth after his death. One who reflects on God's power cannot deny this possibility. If one studies the issue in the light of God's wisdom, he will realize that he is perfectly justified in holding man answerable for the faculties he has granted to him. His infinite wisdom dictates that man be called to render his account. Verses 28 to 40 and 41 to 45 describe the fate of the unbelievers and believers respectively. The former refuse to accept the doctrine of the hereafter, and the latter strive to brighten their prospects in the next life, while they were still alive. They embrace faith and shun such errors of faith, thought, morals, actions, and conduct that destroy one's prospects in the hereafter. Finally, the unbelievers are warned that they may enjoy the pleasures of this world for a while, but they are destined for a terrible end. Whoever fails to derive guidance from the Quran cannot secure it anywhere else either.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والمرسلات عرفا.
In the name of Allah, the most merciful, the most compassionate. By the wind sent forth in quick succession,
فالعاصفات عصفا.
which then blow tempestuously,
والناشرات نشرا.
and raise clouds and scatter them around,
فالفارقات فرقا.
then winnow them thoroughly,
فالملقيات ذكرا.
and then cast Allah's remembrance in people's hearts,
عذرا أو نذرا.
to serve as an excuse or a warning.
The wind serves several important purposes. Sometimes when they cease to blow, they give rise to the frightful prospect of a famine which tends to soften people's hearts. This at times leads people to turn sincerely to God and repent. On other occasions, winds bring generous rainfall, filling people's hearts with gratitude to God. On still other occasions, they blow tempestuously, inspiring fear in all hearts. As a result, many turn to God, dreading His chastisement that would wreak havoc on them.
إنما توعدون لواقع.
Surely, what you are promised shall come to pass.
It could be a reference to the day of resurrection and the hereafter against which they are warned. The oath regarding the inevitability of the day of resurrection is taken here with reference to the following 5 features. 1. The wind sent forth in quick succession. 2. Which blow tempestuously. 3. Which raise clouds and scatter them around. 4. Which winnow them thoroughly. And 5. Which cast God's remembrance. In the above account, the focus is only on the features, without specifying the object that is endowed with these attributes. As a result, the Quran commentators differ as to whether all the above 5 features are of the same entity or of various entities. There's also disagreement among them in identifying these groups. A group of them is of the view that all these attributes are of the wind. This is contested by some who think these are related to the angels. Some hold that the first 3 are the features of winds, while the last 2 are of angels. Some ascribe only the first 2 to winds and the rest to angels. Some scholars hold the view that the first and the second are the features of the angels of mercy and punishment respectively, while the last 3 refer to the verses of the Quran. In our opinion, since these 5 features are described one after another without any indication of a break in the discourse, it would be unsound to assume that the reference is to more than one subject. The cohesion and coherence of the text rather suggests that the whole passage is about the features of one particular entity. The purpose of this is to stress that the things related to the oath are absolutely true and correct. It is therefore unlikely that an intangible thing will be adduced as an argument for an intangible thing. Rather, a tangible entity is more apt. In our opinion, the reference is to winds. We do not accept the view of those who interpret the 5 things to be angels, for they too, like the day of resurrection, belong to the realm of the unseen. Let us now focus on how the system of wind serves as an argument for affirming the truth of the resurrection. Air is one of the most important factors essential for sustaining animal and plant life on earth. Its close link with the life cycle itself proves that it is devised by the all-powerful, most wise creator of the universe. He has put in place everything in the perfect proportion needed for supporting the life cycle. The winds do not merely encompass the earth. Rather, out of His power and wisdom, God has ensured their various states and features which regulate, since the beginning of time, the alternation of seasons and various states of weather, such as the blowing of a breeze, scorching heat, chilling cold, thick clouds, and heavy rainfall. At times, winds lead to devastating storms or beneficial rain or even famine. These are varieties of winds which blow at their appointed time and serve numerous functions. The very system testifies to a powerful divine scheme of things. It is not difficult for Him to bring life into existence or take it away or recreate it after it was obliterated. Only a fool may take the excellent working of the universe as a sport, lacking any underlying sublime purpose,
Man is so helpless against this wonderful arrangement that he can neither blow any wind for himself, nor can he protect himself against devastating gale force winds. Despite his obstinate and stubborn disbelief, winds, at times, remind him of his servitude to his all-powerful Master and Lord, who may use this most important means of life to bring his mercy or his curse upon him. As it is, man is utterly helpless to defy his decree.
فإذا النجوم طمست
So when the stars are extinguished, the stars will lose their brightness.
وإذا السماء فرجت
And the sky is rent asunder. The present system which binds all the celestial entities to their respective orbits will come to an end, and all the barriers will be rent asunder.
وإذا الجبال نسفت
And the mountains are blown away,
وإذا الرسل أقتت
and the appointed time to bring the messengers together arrives. Then shall the promised event come to pass. It is mentioned quite often in the Quran that when God examines mankind's record on the Day of Judgment, the messenger of each nation will be summoned to testify that he had conveyed God's message to his people. This will be the first and clinching argument from God against the wicked and wrongdoers. It will conclusively establish that they themselves were responsible for their error and misconduct, for God had employed every conceivable measure for warning for them.
لأي يوم أجلت
To which day has this task been deferred?
ليوم الفصل
To the Day of Judgment.
وما أدراك ما يوم الفصل
What do you know what the Day of Judgment is?
ويل يومئذ للمكذبين
Woe on that day to those that give the lie to the truth. Meaning the disbelievers who rejected the tidings of the resurrection and led their lives in the world assuming that they will never have to stand before God, rendering the record of deeds and be accountable for the same.
ألم نهلك الأولين
Did we not destroy many a nation of the earlier times? This argument for the hereafter is taken from the annals of history, which man should study. All those nations who denied the hereafter considered this world as the entirety of their existence and determined moral principles based on the outcome of good and evil in this life alone were eventually destroyed without any exception. This proves that the hereafter is a reality, the rejection of which ruins one's life in the same way as when one turns a blind eye to the realities of this life and severely harms himself.
ثم نتبعهم الآخرين
And we shall cause those of later times to follow them. This is God's permanent law. The rejection of the hereafter, which proved fatal for the earlier nations, will prove the same for communities in the future as well. No nation has escaped this fate in the past, and none will be an exception in the future.
كذلك نفعل بالمجرمين
Thus do we deal with the guilty.
ويل يومئذ للمكذبين
Woe on that day to those that give the lie to the truth. This is said to emphasize that howsoever woeful a person's lot might be in this world, it does not represent the real chastisement that might lie in store for him. It is only on the Day of Judgment that each person will come to know the full extent of the chastisement that awaits him. The punishment in this world represents, at most, the detention of a criminal who continues committing crimes, refusing to mend his ways. Not in this world, but in the court of the hereafter alone will his case be decided, and he will be duly punished for his crimes.
ألم نخلقكم من ماء مهين
Did we not create you of a mean fluid,
فجعلناه في قرار مكين
which we then placed in a secure repository? This appointed time is known to God alone. It is beyond man to tell beforehand for how many months, days, hours, minutes, and seconds the baby will remain inside the mother's womb, and exactly what will be the precise time of its birth. God has ordained an appointed time for each baby, of which only He has the knowledge.
إلى قدر معلوم.
Until an appointed time. After conception, the fetus is placed in the safe repository of the mother's womb. The baby is placed there with such arrangements of security and nourishment that it cannot be miscarried unless there is a serious accident. Notwithstanding all the latest advancements in medical science, its abortion is still a difficult and risky process in view of its secure placement in the womb.
فقدرنا فنعم القادرون.
See that we had the power to do so. Great indeed is our power to do what we will. This is another weighty argument for life after death. Since God is able to create man out of an insignificant drop of sperm, why can He not then easily recreate him in any form after his death? The process of man's creation itself testifies to God's excellent creative power. He is in no way helpless to cause man's rebirth after having created him in the first place.
ويل يومئذ للمكذبين.
Woe on that day to those that give the lie to the truth. Despite confronting the overwhelming argument for the possibility of life after death, those people who are denying it are free today to mock this belief as much as they like. They may even dismiss its believers as conservative, outdated, and superstitious in their outlook. But when the day of judgment, which they were denying and scoffing at, will appear, then they will realize this is the day of their complete ruin and disaster.
ألم نجعل الأرض كفاتا.
Did we not make the earth a receptacle?
أحياء وأمواتا.
For the living and the dead.
وجعلنا فيها رواسي شامخات وأسقيناكم ماء فراتا.
And did we not firmly fix towering mountains on it and give you sweet water to drink? It constitutes another argument as to why the doctrine of the hereafter is sound and tenable. Billions of creatures have inhabited the earth for millions of years, including human beings and different animals and plant species. It has been sustaining them all along with its numerous resources and products. Furthermore, numerous creatures die every day on earth, yet there is an amazing system in place for disposing of their dead bodies in no time. The earth then gets itself ready for sustaining the new members of all species. The earth is not made flat or level plain. Mountain ranges and high mountains are part of the landscape. These are instrumental in bringing about climatic changes, variations in seasons, rainfall, causing rivers to flow, creating fertile meadows, and in providing huge trees, supplying timber and a variety of minerals and stones. The earth is also a vast reservoir of water. Equally baffling is the arrangement of the rising of the vapors from the sea and their descent later to the earth as rainfall. All this points to the existence of the all-powerful Creator, one who is all-hearing and all-seeing. If this earth has been created with all its provisions and skillful management requirements only by His power and wisdom, why then should an intelligent person have any difficulty in grasping that the same all-powerful God can put an end to the world and create a new one to His liking? His wisdom demands that He should build a different world after this, so that He may call man to account for the deeds he has done in this world.
ويل يومئذ للمكذبين.
Woe on that day to those that give the lie to the truth. People decry the coming of the hereafter and accountability for their activities as false, calling it both impossible and irrational. They do so in spite of the stunning manifestations of God's power and wisdom. They may remain immersed in their puerile fancies if they so wish. But a day will certainly come when they will see that many a thing, quite contrary to their expectations, will come to pass. It is then that they will fully realize how foolish they were in precipitating such devastation upon themselves.
انطلقوا إلى ما كنتم به تكذبون.
Proceed now towards that which you were wont to deny as false. After proffering the evidence that the hereafter is bound to occur, the disbelievers are told about the treatment that they will receive after the hereafter becomes a reality.
انطلقوا إلى ظل ذي ثلاث شعب.
Proceed towards the three-pronged shadow. Shadow here denotes the shadow caused by smoke. What is meant by its three-pronged form can be grasped by observing a thick pall of smoke splitting into several branches.
لا ظليل ولا يغني من اللهب.
Which neither provides cooling, shade, nor protection against the flames.
إنها ترمي بشرر كالقصر.
It indeed throws up sparks like castles.
كأنه جمالة صفر.
Which seem as though they are yellow-colored camels. Each of its sparks will be as massive as a palace. As these sparks burst, it will seem as though they are yellow-colored camels running about.
ويل يومئذ للمكذبين.
Woe on that day to those that give the lie to the truth.
هذا يوم لا ينطقون.
That will be the day on which they will not be able to utter a word.
ولا يؤذن لهم فيعتذرون.
Nor will they be allowed to proffer excuses. This will be their last condition when they will be consigned to hell. In the grand assembly, they will resort to all sorts of pretexts and pleas in self-defense, blame others for their misdeeds in a bid to plead their innocence, and revile their chiefs for having misled them. Some will even have the temerity to deny their misdeeds, as the Quran states at several places. However, the irrefutable and solid evidence will prove them to be offenders, and moreover, their own limbs will testify against them, leaving no room for any allowance to be made to them. They will be left utterly speechless because the punishment will be awarded to them after fulfilling the due process of law and justice. They will then be unable to put up any defense whatsoever, nor will they be allowed to proffer any excuse. This does not mean that they will be declared guilty without giving them a chance to defend their case. What is meant is that as their crimes will be conclusively proved, they will not be in a position to offer any further pretext or excuse. They will be silenced by the irrefutable evidence against them.
ويل يومئذ للمكذبين.
Woe on that day to those that give the lie to the truth.
هذا يوم الفصل جمعناكم والأولين.
That is the day of judgment on which we have assembled you, as well as all those who went before you.
فإن كان لكم كيد فكيدون.
So if you have any ploy, try it against me. Since they indulged in all sorts of frauds and falsehood in the world, they are sarcastically asked to try any of their ploys against God to escape in the hereafter.
ويل يومئذ للمكذبين.
Woe on that day to those that give the lie.
إن المتقين في ظلال وعيون.
Behold, today the God-fearing will be amidst shades and springs. The God-fearing are those who shun the rejection of the hereafter. They led their lives in the world firmly believing that they will have to render an account of their words, deeds, character, and conduct in the hereafter.
وفواكه مما يشتهون.
And the fruits that they desire will be ready at hand.
كلوا واشربوا هنيئا بما كنتم تعملون.
Eat and drink, and may every joy attend you as a reward for your deeds.
إنا كذلك نجزي المحسنين.
Those do we reward those that do good.
ويل يومئذ للمكذبين.
Woe on that day to those that give the lie to the truth. Another affliction will be that they will be standing in the grand assembly as culprits. Their crimes will be publicly announced, leaving them stunned and speechless. They will ultimately become the fuel for the hellfire. What will torment them worse is that the believers, whom they fought all along, contemptuously dismissing them as imbecile, conservative, regressive, and worthless, will be there enjoying the bliss of paradise.
كلوا وتمتعوا قليلا إنكم مجرمون.
Eat. The surah concludes by addressing these words not only to the Meccan disbelievers, but to the disbelievers of all times, wherever they happen to be. And enjoy yourselves for a while. Surely you are evildoers. Meaning in the short-lived life of this world.
ويل يومئذ للمكذبين.
Woe on that day to those that give the lie to the truth.
وإذا قيل لهم اركعوا لا يركعون.
When it is said to them, bow down before Allah, they do not bow down. Bowing down includes not only serving God, but also believing in His messengers and His book and abiding by His commands.
ويل يومئذ للمكذبين.
Woe on that day to those that give the lie to the truth.
فبأي حديث بعده يؤمنون.
In what discourse after this Quran will they then believe? The Quran has been sent down as the best guide for illustrating before them the distinction between truth and falsehood and directing them towards the path of guidance. If one does not embrace faith even after listening to or studying it, nothing else can guide him to the straight path.